My name is Ariana, and I am 27 years old. 5 years ago, I sat at a fancy restaurant watching my family celebrate my older sister's college graduation. That should have been a happy day. Instead, it became the day I heard my father say the most painful words of my entire life. He called me useless, right there in front of everyone. What happened in the 5 years after that moment changed everything. But before I share this story with you, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. This is a long story filled with pain, but I promise you, it ends in a way that makes me proud. Stay with me until the very end. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and nothing much ever changes. My father worked as a construction engineer, spending long hours on job sites and coming home smelling like concrete and sweat. My mother was a nurse at the local hospital, pulling double shifts more often than not. From the outside, we looked like your typical middle class American family: two parents, two daughters, a modest house with a backyard, and a dog named Chester, who had been around since before I was born. But inside that house, there was an invisible line that divided everything. On one side stood my older sister Meredith, 3 years older than me, and the undisputed star of our family. On the other side stood me, Ariana, the quiet one, the afterthought, the second child, who never quite measured up. Meredith was everything my parents seemed to want in a daughter. She was outgoing, charming, and academically brilliant. She made honor roll every semester without even trying. She played volleyball, ran track, and still found time to be homecoming queen her senior year. Teachers adored her. Neighbors constantly told my parents how lucky they were to have such a perfect daughter. And then there was me. I was the quiet kid who preferred sitting in corners with a sketchbook rather than running around with other children. While Meredith collected trophies and certificates, I collected colored pencils and watercolor sets. I was not a bad student by any means. My grades were decent, usually B's with occasional A's. But decent was not good enough in a house where Meredith set the standard at exceptional. The favoritism was never subtle. It showed itself in 1,000 small ways that accumulated over the years like drops of water slowly filling a bucket. When Meredith turned 16, my parents threw her a massive birthday party. They rented out the community center, hired a DJ, and invited half the town. There were balloons everywhere, a 3-tier cake, and a brand new car waiting in the driveway with a giant red bow on top. My mother cried happy tears as Meredith squealed with delight. When I turned 16 2 years later, we had dinner at home. My mother picked up a cake from the grocery store on her way back from work. It was chocolate, which I appreciated, but the frosting had someone else's name on it that the bakery had scraped off and replaced with mine. You could still see the faint outline of the original letters beneath the pink icing. My father handed me a card with $50 inside and said happy birthday without looking up from the television. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself that birthday parties were silly anyway, and that material things did not define love. But the differences kept piling up. When Meredith won the state championship in volleyball, my parents drove 6 hours to watch the final game. They took the entire week off work. They wore matching shirts with her jersey number and sat in the front row screaming her name. Afterward, they took her out for steak dinner and posted photographs all over social media with captions about their incredible daughter. When I won second place in the state art competition during my junior year, I had to take the bus home by myself because both my parents were busy. I walked through the front door holding my ribbon and my framed certificate, hoping for some acknowledgement. My mother glanced up from her phone and said, "That is nice, honey." My father did not even look away from whatever game was playing on television. Neither of them asked to see my artwork. Neither of them suggested celebrating. The certificate ended up in a drawer somewhere, and I never mentioned it again. The pattern continued when college came around. Meredith got accepted into a prestigious business school in Michigan. My parents paid for everything: tuition room and board book spending money. They even bought her a brand new laptop and a car so she could drive home whenever she wanted. Moving day was a family affair. We all drove up together, spent the weekend setting up her dorm room, and took dozens of photographs to commemorate the occasion. I wanted to study graphic design. It was the only thing I had ever truly loved, the only thing that made me feel like I had something to offer the world. When I told my parents about my plans, they exchanged a look that I will never forget. It was a mixture of disappointment and resignation. My father said graphic design is not a real career. He said it was playing around with computers, and that I would never make any money doing it. My mother agreed, adding that I should study something practical, like accounting or nursing, something that would actually pay the bills. I applied anyway. I got accepted to a decent design program at a state school in Indiana. It was not fancy, but it was mine. I applied for every scholarship I could find and managed to scrape together enough to cover most of my tuition. For the rest, I worked. I waited tables at a diner near campus 25 hours a week on top of my full course load. I bought my textbooks used. I lived in the cheapest apartment I could find, a tiny studio with a leaky faucet and questionable heating. My parents contributed nothing, not a single dollar. They said I had made my choice, and now I had to live with it. I told myself I did not need their help. I told myself I would prove them wrong. But deep down, despite everything, I still hoped. I hoped that one day they would look at me and see someone worth loving. I hoped that eventually, somehow, I would do something that would make them proud. I did not know then that my hope was about to be crushed completely. I did not know that my sister's graduation day would become the day I finally understood exactly where I stood in my parents' eyes. Meredith graduated from college in May 5 years ago, almost to the day from when I am telling you this story now. It was a beautiful spring morning, the kind where the sky looks impossibly blue and the air smells like freshly cut grass and new beginning. Our whole family piled into my parents' SUV and made the 4-hour drive from Ohio to Michigan for the ceremony. I was 22 years old at the time, having finished my own degree just a few months earlier. I was working as a freelance graphic designer, picking up whatever projects I could find online. The work was inconsistent, and the pay was terrible. Some months I barely made enough to cover my rent. Other months I had to choose between groceries and electricity. But I was trying. I was doing my best with what I had. The graduation ceremony itself was everything you would expect. Hundreds of students in black robes walking across a stage while their families cheered from the stands. Meredith looked radiant when her name was called, her smile bright enough to light up the entire auditorium. My parents stood and applauded so loudly that people in nearby rows turned to look. My mother wiped tears from her eyes. My father pumped his fist in the air like his team had just won the Super Bowl. I clapped too. I was genuinely happy for my sister. Whatever complicated feelings I had about my place in our family, I never resented Meredith for her success. That was not her fault. After the ceremony, we went to a fancy restaurant downtown to celebrate. It was the kind of place with white tablecloths and menus, without prices, the kind of place I could never afford on my own. My parents had made reservations weeks in advance and invited several family friends to join us. The table was crowded with people congratulating Meredith. Champagne flowed freely. My parents presented her with a gift, a beautiful gold watch that must have cost more than I made in 3 months. They also announced that they would be helping her with the down payment on her first apartment. Meredith squealed and hugged them both, tears streaming down her face. I sat quietly at my end of the table, sipping water and picking at my salad. I smiled when someone looked my way. I laughed at the appropriate moments. I had become very good at making myself small, at taking up as little space as possible, so as not to draw attention to the obvious contrast between my sister and myself. Everything was going fine until one of my father's old colleagues leaned across the table and addressed me directly. His name was Richard, a heavy-set man with a red face who worked with my father on construction projects sometimes. He had known our family for years, though I doubted he could have picked me out of a lineup before that moment. "What about you, Ariana?" he asked, his voice booming over the chatter of the table. "I hear you are quite the artist. You doing anything exciting these days?" The table fell quiet. All eyes turned to me. I felt my cheeks flush. I opened my mouth to respond, to say something vague about my freelance work that would satisfy the question without inviting further scrutiny. But before I could get a word out, my mother spoke. "Oh, Ariana," she said, with a dismissive wave of her hand. "She is still figuring things out. You know how it is with artsy types, always chasing dreams instead of real careers. I am sure she will settle down eventually." She laughed as she said it, as if it were all a harmless joke. Several people at the table chuckled along with her, not out of cruelty necessarily, but because that is what people do when someone makes a joke at a family dinner. I felt something crack inside my chest, but the worst was yet to come. My father, who had been refilling his wine glass, set down the bottle and shook his head with a heavy sigh. The truth is, he said speaking loud enough for the whole table to hear our second child is pretty much useless. Not like Meredith here. He gestured toward my sister with his wine glass, sloshing a bit of red liquid onto the pristine tablecloth. Meredith is going places. She has a head for business, a real future ahead of her. Ariana, though. He paused, seeming to consider his next words, before deciding to say them anyway. Well, we cannot all be winners, can we? The silence that followed was deafening. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands began to tremble. The room seemed to tilt sideways, and for a moment I thought I might actually faint right there at the table. Richard looked uncomfortable. He cleared his throat and quickly changed the subject, asking my father about some upcoming construction project. The conversation resumed around me, people desperate to move past the awkward moment. But I could not move past it. I could not move at all. I looked across the table at Meredith, hoping for something. A sympathetic glance, a word of defense, anything. She would not meet my eyes. She stared down at her plate, pushing food around with her fork, pretending she had not heard anything, pretending I did not exist. I mumbled something about needing to use the restroom and pushed back my chair. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I walked through the restaurant, past the hostess stand, down a narrow hallway to the ladies' room. I locked myself in a stall and sat down on the closed toilet lid. And then I cried. I cried harder than I had cried in years. Ugly gasping sobs that echoed off the tile walls. I stuffed my fist in my mouth, trying to muffle the sound. Terrified that someone would hear me, terrified that my family would come looking and find me like this, and have even more reason to think I was weak and pathetic and useless. Useless. The word played on repeat in my head. I stayed in that bathroom for 15 minutes. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen. My mascara had run. I looked exactly like what I felt, broken. I cleaned myself up as best I could and walked back to the table. I smiled and said I was fine when my mother asked if everything was okay. I sat through the rest of the meal without tasting a single bite of food. I laughed at jokes I did not hear. I congratulated my sister again on her achievement. And when we finally got in the car for the long drive home, I sat in the back seat and watched the world blur past the window. Silent tears rolled down my cheeks in the darkness, and I did not bother wiping them away. No one noticed. No one ever noticed. That night, something fundamental changed inside me. I realized with crystal clarity that my parents would never see me the way I wanted them to. They would never look at me with pride. They would never celebrate my accomplishments the way they celebrated Meredith's. In their eyes, I would always be the second child, the disappointment, the useless one. The hope I had carried my whole life, that stubborn flame I had protected through years of neglect and favoritism, finally went out. The months after Meredith's graduation were some of the darkest of my life. I went back to my tiny apartment and tried to resume my freelance work, but something in me had broken. The confidence I once had in my abilities had been shattered by my father's words. Every time I sat down at my computer to work on a project, I heard his voice in my head. Useless. Pretty much useless. Not like Meredith. Deadlines started slipping. Clients grew frustrated with my slow responses and mediocre work. A few of them stopped hiring me altogether. My income, already precarious, dropped even further. There were weeks when I survived on nothing but ramen noodles and tap water. I stopped calling home. What was the point? Every conversation followed the same pattern. My mother would ask me perfunctory questions about my life without waiting for real answers, then launch into an extended update about Meredith. Meredith's new job at a prestigious financial firm, Meredith's handsome new boyfriend, Meredith's exciting plans for the future. I was invisible, a ghost in my own family. Even when I did try to share something about my life, my parents found ways to minimize it. When I mentioned landing a small logo design project for a local bakery, my mother said that is nice, but when are you going to get a real job? When I told my father I was thinking about taking some online courses to expand my skills, he asked why I was wasting money on more useless education instead of finding a husband to take care of me. After a while, I stopped trying. In my loneliness, I reached out to Meredith. Despite everything, she was still my sister. We had grown up in the same house, shared the same childhood-built blanket forts together, and stayed up late watching movies when our parents thought we were asleep. Surely there was some bond between us that could transcend the favoritism that had defined our lives. I called her one evening, about 2 months after her graduation. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. "Hey," she said. "What is up?" I took a deep breath. "I wanted to talk about what happened at your graduation dinner, what Dad said about me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear music playing in the background, the clink of glasses. She was at a party or a bar somewhere, surrounded by people having a good time. "Oh," that she said finally. Her voice was dismissive in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of our mother. "You know, Dad, he does not mean half the things he says. He was just proud of me and got carried away. Do not take it so personally." "Do not take it personally," I repeated, my voice cracking. "He called me useless in front of everyone, in front of strangers, and you just sat there and said nothing." Another pause. When she spoke again, her tone had hardened. "Look, Ariana, Mom and Dad are not perfect. No parents are. But they love us both. They just show it differently. Maybe if you had made different choices, if you had picked a more stable career path, they would not worry about you so much." I felt like I had been slapped. "So this is my fault?" I asked. "I am useless because I did not become a clone of you." I did not say that. Meredith sighed heavily, the way people do when they are dealing with someone they find exhausting. "I am just saying you cannot blame Mom and Dad for having concerns. They want what is best for you. And what about what I want? What about supporting my dreams instead of constantly comparing me to you? Look, I do not have time for this right now." Meredith's voice was flat final. "I have to go. We can talk later, okay?" She hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding my phone for a long time, staring at the screen until it went dark, and I understood finally that Meredith was never going to defend me. She was a beneficiary of the system our parents had created, the golden child, who had everything handed to her, while I scrambled for scraps. Why would she risk her position by standing up for me? What did she have to gain? I was truly alone. The realization was devastating, but it was also clarifying. If no one else was going to believe in me, then I would have to believe in myself. If my family was not going to be my support system, then I would have to build my own. I spent the next few weeks in a fog of depression, barely functioning, barely eating. But somewhere in the darkness, a small spark began to glow. It was anger at first, hot and bitter. How dare they dismiss me? How dare they write me off as useless before I had even had a chance to prove myself? The anger scared me. I had never been an angry person, but I also could not deny that it felt better than the hopelessness that had been consuming me. Anger was energy. Anger was fuel. I started looking for ways out. One night, scrolling through job boards at 2 in the morning, I found a listing for a junior designer position at a small creative agency in Austin, Texas. The pay was modest, barely more than what I was scraping together freelancing, but it was a real job with benefits and stability and colleagues to learn from. And it was far away from Ohio, far away from my family and their suffocating expectations. I applied on a whim, not really expecting to hear back. But a week later, I got an email requesting a video interview. 2 weeks after that, they offered me the job. I called my parents to tell them I was moving to Texas. My mother answered the phone. "Texas," she said, as if I had announced I was relocating to Mars. "Why would you move all the way down there for work?" I explained. "I got a job at a design agency. It is a real opportunity for me." There was silence on the line for a moment. Then my mother called out to my father, who was apparently in the next room. "Ed," she shouted, "Ariana says she is moving to Texas for some art thing." I heard my father's muffled response. "Well, that is her choice. If she fails, she better not come crying to us for help." My mother relayed this back to me as if it were perfectly reasonable advice. "If it does not work out, do not expect us to bail you out. You are on your own." "I know," I said quietly. "I have always been on my own." I do not think she heard me, or if she did, she chose not to respond. I hung up the phone and started packing my bags. I had 2 suitcases, a laptop, and a bank account with just enough money to survive 2 months if I was very, very careful. It was not much, but it was mine. 3 weeks later, I loaded everything I owned into my beat-up car and drove south. I watched Ohio shrink in my rearview mirror, and I made myself a promise. I would never let anyone call me useless again. Not my parents, not my sister, not anyone. I did not know what the future held. I did not know if I would succeed or fail. But for the first time in my life, I was choosing my own path. And that felt like the beginning of something. Austin welcomed me with open arms and brutal heat. I arrived in the middle of July, when the temperature regularly climbed past 100 degrees and the air shimmered like water above the asphalt. My tiny studio apartment did not have air conditioning that worked properly, just a window unit that groaned and wheezed and barely kept the temperature below 85. But I did not care. I was free. The job at the agency was harder than I had anticipated. My boss was a woman named Patricia, a sharp-tongued perfectionist with 3 decades of experience and zero patience for excuses. She tore apart my first design within 5 minutes of seeing it, pointing out flaws I had not even noticed. Your typography is lazy. Your color choices are predictable. You call this professional work? I went home that first night and cried. I seriously considered getting in my car and driving right back to Ohio, tail between my legs, proving everyone right about me. But I did not. Instead, I woke up the next morning and went back to work. I took Patricia's criticism and used it. I stayed late every night studying, learning, improving. I watched tutorials on weekends. I analyzed the work of designers I admired, trying to understand what made them great. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I started to get better. There was another junior designer at the agency named Harper. She was about my age, with bright red hair and a laugh that could fill an entire room. She had grown up in Austin and knew the city like the back of her hand. She took me under her wing from my very first week, showing me where to get the best tacos, which coffee shops had free Wi-Fi, which bars offered live music on Thursday nights. More importantly, Harper believed in me. One evening, about 3 months into my time at the agency, I was working late on a particularly challenging project. I had redesigned the same layout 7 times, and I still could not get it right. I was exhausted and frustrated and ready to throw my computer out the window. Harper walked by my desk on her way out and stopped when she saw my face. "You okay?" she asked. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak without crying. She pulled up a chair and sat down next to me. She looked at my screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "This is good," she said. I laughed bitterly. "Patricia is going to hate it. Patricia hates everything at first. That is just her process. But seriously, Ariana, you have real talent. I have watched you these past few months, and you are getting better every single day. Do not let one tough project make you doubt yourself." I looked at her, searching for signs that she was just being polite, but her expression was completely sincere. "You really think so?" I asked. "I know so," she said. She squeezed my shoulder. "Now go home and get some sleep. You will crack this tomorrow with fresh eyes." She was right. The next morning, I figured out what was wrong with the layout and fixed it in 20 minutes. Patricia reviewed it with her usual skepticism, then nodded once and said, "Not bad." Coming from her, that was practically a standing ovation. As the months passed, I found my footing. Patricia started assigning me more complex projects. Clients began requesting me specifically. By the end of my first year in Austin, I had been promoted to a regular designer position with a significant raise. I used the extra money to move to a better apartment, one with air conditioning that actually worked. I bought furniture that did not come from thrift stores. I started building a life. I called my parents occasionally, maybe once a month. The conversations were always brief and unsatisfying. They asked vague questions about my work that made it clear they did not understand or care what I did. They told me endless stories about Meredith, who was thriving at her financial firm, who was dating a lawyer now, who had just been featured in some business magazine. I stopped expecting anything from them. I stopped hoping they would suddenly realize my worth. I simply accepted that our relationship would always be distant and moved on with my life. My second and third years in Austin flew by. I continued to grow at the agency, earning another promotion to senior designer. My portfolio expanded. I started getting inquiries from clients outside the agency asking if I did freelance work on the side. At first, I said no, worried about overextending myself. But eventually, I started taking on small projects here and there, building a reputation in the local design community. Harper became my closest friend, the sister I had always wished Meredith could be. We spent holidays together when neither of us felt like going home to our respective families. We supported each other through bad dates and work stress and all the small crises of our 20s. She was the first person I called when something good happened, and the first person I turned to when things fell apart. 4 years after arriving in Austin, I made a decision that terrified me. I quit my job at the agency and started my own design studio. It was the scariest thing I had ever done. I had savings, but not enough to survive more than a few months if things went badly. I had clients who said they would follow me, but there was no guarantee they would actually do so. I was betting everything on myself, and the voice in my head, the one that sounded suspiciously like my father, kept telling me I was going to fail. But I did it anyway. The first 3 months were brutal. Clients were slow to commit. Money was tight. I spent countless nights staring at my ceiling, wondering if I had made a catastrophic mistake. Then I landed a project that changed everything. A tech startup needed a complete brand identity logo, website marketing materials, the whole package. It was a massive undertaking bigger than anything I had ever done on my own. The pressure was immense. I poured everything I had into that project. I barely slept for 3 weeks. I revised and refined until every element was perfect. When the startup launched, their brand generated significant attention in the tech community. The design was praised in several industry publications. The company credited me by name in their press releases. Suddenly, my phone started ringing. Other startups wanted to know if I was available. Established businesses reached out asking about rebranding projects. My schedule filled up within weeks. By the end of my 5th year in Austin, my studio had grown to include 2 employees. I had a real office in a trendy part of town. A local business magazine wrote a feature about me with the headline, "The Designer Who Built Her Empire from Scratch." Empire was an exaggeration, but I did not mind. I had built something real, something that was entirely my own. No one had handed it to me. No one had believed in me except Harper and myself. And yet here I was. I still had not heard from my parents with any acknowledgement of my success. I did not expect to. I had stopped checking their social media years ago, tired of seeing posts celebrating Meredith, while I went completely unmentioned. I had made peace with being the invisible daughter. Or so I thought, because life has a way of bringing people back together, whether you want it to or not. And I was about to get a phone call that would force me to confront my family one more time. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was at my studio reviewing concepts for a new restaurant branding project when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. "Ariana?" The voice was my mother's, but softer than I remembered, almost sweet. "How are you, sweetheart?" I nearly dropped my phone. My mother had not called me sweetheart since I was maybe 8 years old. "I am fine," I said cautiously. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is wonderful." She was using her company voice, the one she reserved for neighbors and coworkers and people she wanted to impress. "I am calling because your father's 60th birthday is coming up next month. We are having a big party at the house. All the family will be there. We would really love for you to come." I sat back in my chair, suspicious. In 5 years, my parents had never invited me to anything. Not Thanksgiving, not Christmas, not anyone's birthday. I had spent every holiday either alone or with Harper and her family. "Why now?" I asked. My mother laughed a brittle sound. "What do you mean, why now? You are our daughter. Of course we want you there. It would not be a family celebration without you." I did not believe her for a second, but curiosity got the better of me. Or maybe it was something else, some lingering hope that refused to die no matter how many times it had been crushed. "I will think about it," I said. "Wonderful." She sounded relieved, almost desperate. "I will send you all the details. Oh, and Ariana Meredith will be there too with her husband. It would be so nice for all of us to be together again." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone with a mix of confusion and dread. I talked it over with Harper that night over drinks at our favorite bar. "Something is up," she said immediately. "Your mom has never cared about having you at family events before. Why would she suddenly want you at this party?" "I do not know," I admitted. "Maybe they actually want to see me. Maybe they have changed." Harper raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Or maybe they want something. What could they possibly want from me?" She shrugged. "Only one way to find out." She was right. I could ignore the invitation and spend the rest of my life wondering. Or I could go back to Ohio, face my family one more time, and finally get some closure. A month later, I was driving across the country back to the place I had sworn I would never return. The town looked exactly the same. The same tired storefronts, the same cracked sidewalks, the same feeling of being trapped in a place where nothing ever changed. I drove past my old high school, past the diner where I used to work, past the park, where I had spent countless hours as a lonely teenager, sketching trees and wondering if my life would ever get better. I pulled up to my parents' house just before noon. It looked smaller than I remembered, the paint more faded, the lawn less meticulously maintained. Or maybe I had just grown used to bigger things. I sat in my car for a few minutes gathering my courage. Then I took a deep breath and walked to the front door. My mother answered with an exaggerated smile and a hug that felt performative, like she was putting on a show for an invisible audience. Ariana, you look wonderful. Come in, come in. I stepped inside and immediately noticed that nothing had changed in the decor. Family photos lined the hallway, but they were almost exclusively of Meredith. Meredith at prom, Meredith at graduation, Meredith's wedding. There was exactly one photo of me, a small frame tucked in the corner of the living room, taken at my high school graduation. I was mid-blink and looked vaguely confused. Some things never changed. Meredith was in the kitchen with her husband, a man named Derek, whom I had never met. She looked the same as always, polished and put together in a way that made me feel underdressed in my simple jeans and blouse. She hugged me briefly, the way you might hug a distant acquaintance you are obligated to acknowledge. Good to see you, she said without meeting my eyes. The party started a few hours later. Extended family arrived along with neighbors and my father's work colleagues and various other people I either vaguely recognized or had never seen before. My father held court in the backyard, accepting congratulations and gifts and compliments on making it to 60. I mingled as best I could, answering questions about my life in Texas with practiced ease. Most people seemed surprised to learn I existed at all. The trouble started during dinner. We were all seated at a long table in the backyard, eating catered food and making small talk. One of my parents' neighbors, a woman named Carol, who had known our family for years, started asking about Meredith's life, her job, her house, her husband. Meredith answered graciously, clearly comfortable being the center of attention. Then Carol turned to me. And what about you, Ariana? I remember you were always so artistic. Are you still drawing? Before I could respond, a voice came from across the table. It belonged to my mother's cousin, Eleanor, a woman I had not seen since childhood. Drawing, Eleanor laughed. She does more than draw. Ariana is a successful business owner now. I read an article about her in some magazine. She built a whole design company from scratch. Did it all on her own without any help. The table went quiet. My mother's smile froze on her face. My father stopped chewing and stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Is that true? Carol asked, genuinely impressed. I nodded, suddenly uncomfortable with all the attention. Yes. I have a small design studio in Austin. We work with startups and small businesses mostly. That is remarkable, Carol exclaimed. Your parents must be so proud. I glanced at my parents. My father's expression was unreadable. My mother let out a forced laugh. Oh well, she said dismissively. You know how it is with those creative fields. She is still doing the art thing. It is nice as a hobby, I suppose. A hobby? Eleanor looked confused. I thought the article said her company was quite successful. Multiple employees, high-profile clients. My mother waved her hand. Oh, you know how they exaggerate in those things. I felt heat rising to my cheeks. 5 years. 5 years of building something from nothing, of proving myself, of succeeding against all odds. And my mother could not even acknowledge it. Even now, sitting at this table surrounded by family who had read about my accomplishments, she was still trying to minimize me. But I held my tongue. I did not want to cause a scene at my father's birthday party. The meal continued with awkward small talk. I felt eyes on me throughout, people clearly curious about the daughter they had never heard about. Meredith grew quieter. As the evening progressed, her usual confidence seeming to waver slightly. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. She led me to my father's study and closed the door behind us. I need to talk to you about something, she said. Her voice had lost its sugary sweetness. She sounded tired, worried. What is it? She took a deep breath. It is about Meredith. I waited. She is in some financial trouble. The house she and Derek bought, well, they overextended themselves. The mortgage payments are more than they can handle, and with the economy the way it is. She trailed off, then looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, almost pleading. They are behind on their payments. They might lose the house. I processed this information slowly. So Meredith, the golden child, the successful one, the daughter who could do no wrong, was in trouble. And my parents, who had always supported her unconditionally, had apparently already done everything they could. We have helped them as much as we can, my mother continued, confirming my suspicion. But we have used up most of our savings. Your father is retiring soon, and we cannot afford to give them any more. She paused, and I suddenly understood why I had been invited to this party. Why my mother had called me sweetheart for the first time in decades. Why everyone was suddenly interested in my existence. We were hoping you might be able to help, my mother said. You have this business now. You must have some money saved up. If you could lend Meredith enough to catch up on her payments just until she gets back on her feet. I stared at her, a strange mixture of emotions flooding through me. Anger, vindication, sadness, and underneath it all, a cold clarity. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. 5 years ago, Dad called me useless at Meredith's graduation dinner. You both have spent my entire life treating me like I do not matter, like everything I do is worthless. You have never once acknowledged my accomplishments or shown any interest in my life. And now, the first time you invite me to a family event in years, it is because you want my money. My mother's face flushed. That is not fair, Ariana. We have always loved you. Have you? I asked. Because it did not feel like love when Dad announced to a table full of people that I was useless. It did not feel like love when you refused to help me pay for college. It did not feel like love when you spent 22 years making me feel like I was invisible. My mother opened her mouth to respond, but I was not finished. I built my company with nothing. No support from you, no encouragement, no belief that I could succeed. I did it despite everything you said about me, not because of anything you gave me. And now you want me to bail out Meredith, who has had every advantage, every opportunity, every dollar you could spare. The door opened behind us. My father stood in the doorway, his expression hard. What is going on in here? He demanded. I turned to face him. Do you remember what you said at Meredith's graduation? You called me useless. You said I was not like her, that I was never going to amount to anything. He shifted uncomfortably, but did not deny it. Look at me now, I said. I have a successful business. I have employees who depend on me. I have clients who value my work. I did all of that without a single dollar or word of encouragement from either of you. I am not useless. I never was. My father said nothing. My mother looked like she might cry. I will not be giving Meredith any money, I continued. Not because I am cruel, but because it would not actually help her. She needs to learn how to stand on her own feet, how to solve her own problems without running to someone else for rescue, the way I had to learn. I moved toward the door, then paused. I do not hate you, I said softly, either of you, but I will not pretend that everything is fine between us either. You spent my whole life making me feel worthless. That has consequence. I walked out of the study and nearly ran into Meredith, who was standing in the hallway. From the look on her face, she had heard everything. Ariana, she started, tears forming in her eyes. I am sorry. I know I should have stood up for you back then. I know I have been a terrible sister. I looked at her for a long moment. Part of me wanted to hug her. Part of me wanted to scream. Instead, I just felt tired. You are going to be okay, I told her. You have more strength than you think. But you need to find it yourself. No one else can do that for you. I walked past her through the living room full of party guests who fell silent as I passed and out the front door. I got in my car and drove away from my childhood home. In the rearview mirror, I watched the house get smaller and smaller until it disappeared around a corner. I did not cry. For the first time in my memory, leaving that place did not hurt. It felt like freedom. The drive back to Austin took 2 days. I took my time stopping at small towns along the way, eating at roadside diners, sleeping at budget motels. I needed the time to process everything that had happened. For the first few weeks after returning, I felt hollow. I had confronted my parents, said the things I had kept bottled up for years, and walked away with my dignity intact. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like grief. I was mourning the family I had always wanted but never had. The parents who would have supported my dreams. The sister who would have been my ally. The childhood where I felt loved and valued for who I was. That family had never existed. And accepting that fact, truly accepting it, was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Harper was there for me as always. She listened when I needed to talk and distracted me when I needed to think about something else. She dragged me out of my apartment when I wanted to hide from the world. She reminded me again and again that I had people who loved me even if they did not share my blood. I started seeing a therapist. It was something I had resisted for years, but I finally acknowledged that I needed help processing 27 years of family dysfunction. My therapist was a kind woman named Dr. Patterson. who specialized in adult children of difficult families. She helped me understand that my parents' treatment of me said everything about them and nothing about my worth as a person. You cannot control how others see you, she told me during one session, but you can control how you see yourself. You have spent your whole life looking to your parents for validation they were never going to give. The real work now is learning to validate yourself. It took months, there were setbacks and difficult days, but slowly I began to heal. Something unexpected happened a few months after the birthday party. Meredith called me. She was not asking for money. She just wanted to talk. She told me that she and Derek had figured things out. They had sold the too expensive house and moved into a smaller apartment. Derek had taken a second job. They were struggling, but they were making it work. You were right, she said. I needed to figure it out myself. I spent my whole life having mom and dad fix everything for me. I never learned how to handle hard things on my own. We talked for 2 hours that night. She told me about growing up as the favored child, about the pressure she had always felt to be perfect, about the guilt she carried for being treated better than me. It was not an excuse, but it was an explanation. And for the first time, I felt like I was talking to my actual sister instead of the golden child our parents had created. We started calling each other regularly after that. Once a week, then twice. We texted memes and pictures. We sent each other birthday cards. We were building something new, a relationship based on honesty instead of competition. My parents were a different story. They called occasionally, always awkward, always brief. There were no apologies, no admissions of fault, but there were also no more comparisons to Meredith, no more dismissals of my work. They asked about my business even if they did not quite understand what I did. They mentioned seeing my name in an article and sounding almost proud. It was not much, but it was more than I had ever gotten before. I learned to accept my parents for who they were instead of resenting them for who they could not be. They were flawed people who had failed me in fundamental ways. That was the truth, and no amount of wishing would change it. But I also recognized that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting them to suffer. The only person my bitterness hurt was me, so I let it go. Not all at once, but gradually, like releasing air from a balloon. I forgave them not for their sake, but for mine. I stopped needing them to change. I stopped needing them to apologize. I stopped needing anything from them at all. And in that release, I found peace. Today, I am 27 years old. I run a design studio that I built from nothing. I have an amazing best friend who is more family to me than my blood relatives ever were. I have a relationship with my sister that grows stronger every month. I have a therapist who helps me work through the old wounds that still surface sometimes. I have a life that I am proud of. 5 years ago, my father called me useless. He was wrong. I was never useless. I was just surrounded by people who could not see my value. The moment I removed myself from their shadow and stepped into my own light, everything changed. If you are watching this and you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever been told you would never amount to anything, if you have ever wondered if maybe they were right about you, I want you to know something. They are wrong. You are not useless. You have never been useless. Your worth is not determined by the people who fail to see it. And